You know, my family, my mother was quite musical. Like she was a singer, church singer kind of thing. I took piano lessons, classical piano lessons. My father was a lawyer in town, but he wanted to be a cowboy, and he had a whole bunch. He knew a whole bunch of. I had a beat up old guitar, and he knew a whole bunch of like yodels and cowboy songs. Right. So that's kind of where that part of me came from, and then later on, I actually studied French horn for my whole junior high school career, and actually went to U of C to do Bachelor of Music in French horn performance. So, so I was big into classical music in many ways. I don't think I know that much about it. I could just play the French horn pretty well. But through that whole time, my father died when I was quite young, and he had taught me a few chords on the guitar, and his guitar was downstairs where my bedroom was, so I just picked that up on my own, and I don't know, maybe it was just, gave me a chance to think about my father, and I just played a lot of guitar.
So you felt a connection between
that's kind of how I felt it,
yeah.
And that's where I learned about, country music and songs like that.
What in your mind makes for a good country song?
The thing about country music is I take it seriously.
Of course.
I mean, like lyrically, I think usually it's a song about some type of heartbreak that you can dance to. So that's how I see a great country song, But also, like, some of those songs are crafted so brilliantly. Like Merle Haggard, to me, is one of the great songwriters that's ever lived. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, it can be about everything going wrong, like people dying, but you can still dance to it.
At what point did you decide that you were going to play guitar? How old were you? I mean, I know.
I was playing from like the time I was 8. I when I got into junior high school, I
learn by ear?
Yeah, by ear. I just learned by ear. Like, I'm just a rhythm guitar player, right? So I think I found a couple of books and just found some chord charts, started playing that way. And then by the time I got into junior high school, I was thinking about writing songs. Like, I loved Gordon Lightfoot, Leonard Cohen, stuff like that. And all I really wanted to do was try and write a song. So I just kind of started doing it, just for myself in my basement. And I bought a little PA system, just for myself for the basement. And I just sat around there all night learning chords and trying to write songs and playing songs, anything I could hear on the radio or anything I could, buy a record for.
Do you still remember the very first song you ever wrote?
I think it was called "Oh Suzanne."
Oh.
But I was about, I was probably about 12. I remember, though, I remember the feeling I had when I was writing it. I remember I just had a pen and I just started writing something down, and I thought, oh, well, the next line would be like this, and I had my guitar. And I remember being just like so excited that I ran outside, like to just like kind of rest for a couple of minutes, and then I ran back in and finished the song. Oh, I mean, I played it, like I got my first professional gig when I was 16, so I was playing songs.
Where was that? Where did you?
It was at the Cremona Hotel, and I shouldn't have been there, but I don't know, it just came to me. That's all I wanted to do. All I wanted to do was just sing and play guitar, like really from as far back as I can remember. That's what I really felt I wanted to do. And so I, was obviously very green, and I just took a little demo tape I'd made to an agency in Calgary back then, like a booking agency. So I took this tape, it was a woman, and she said, you can't, you're not 18, right? Oh. And I said, oh, well, okay. And then I got home, and when I walked in the door from taking the bus down there, my phone was ringing, and it was her, and she said, look, can you pretend you're 18, because the guy we have for this weekend at the Cremona Hotel can't do it. So if you can go out there, don't say anything, just get up and play, you can have the gig. So that was my first.
Just get up and play.
Right, so I did, and a huge fight broke out in the place. The RCMP came, but I just stayed. They didn't hassle me at all. But so that was my first, I think my first professional gig anyway, in a bar.
How much did you make?
Don't remember. But I mean, it was significant to me. Like, I mean, I felt like, wow, I can do this for 2 nights, and I can, on a weekend and make this kind of money. Like back then, it was like, it felt good to me. I'm eclectic in my musical tastes. Like, I listen to everything. And
I mean, you walk in and there's Glenn Gould record, there's
for
jazz
sure.
records all over.
I listen to all that stuff all the time, you know. And, you know, I think it's in some ways when you're doing one specific thing, like when you're in one genre, in many ways, it's good to, or I like to listen to things outside of it.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel, I mean, I think everything adds to it. I mean, they're classical, I mean, music's music, I guess.
Ray Charles said there's only two kinds of music.
Right.
Good
and
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he made one of the great country records of all time, too.
What
you
a
know,
good
like,
record
so,
that was.
yeah, fantastic.
Now, speaking of country as a genre, now we've got what I refer to as almost phony country. It's like commercial country. It's the country that everybody seems to really, I mean, how do you feel about this new country that...
I don't know, because like I don't really listen to it very much. I don't really even know very many people who listen to it. Having said that, I mean, I have nothing against it, because I think country music, since its inception, has really been about money, like commercial selling things, and I think that's what's happening with this somehow, you know. So if they can sell more music, they'll do it. But for me, like the high point of country music, you know, 50s and 60s, and then of course the early stuff, but the 50s and 60s country songwriting for me was where it's at. I mean, to me, the stuff that I hear now, and as I said, I don't really listen to it, just feels like kind of like 70s pop,
right?
Sort of.
It's all very E equals MC.
Yeah.
You know, let's write a...
I mean, I don't want to be the guy that says, oh, it all sounds the same to me, because like I don't feel like that about a lot of music, but a lot of that. I mean, like any form of music, there's some good things. I hear some songs coming at me on the radio that I think, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. But in general, I can't tell the artists apart. I find it difficult to identify a voice. Whereas if I hear Merle Haggard's voice, I know who it is.
Right away.
If I hear George Jones, I know who it is.
Yeah.
You know, you can just tell. And maybe some people can do that with the new stuff. But I just don't listen to that much.
Have you watched the Burns documentary thing?
I've watched part of it, yeah.
Yeah, because that's brilliant.
Yeah, I like it. I find, I mean, I love him. I love his jazz one, but, you know, I think in some ways I've like looked a lot at country music, and I've kind of studied the history of it. And I do really enjoy the documentary. It's fantastic. There's so many great things in it. I find that sometimes I don't feel like he gets quite deep enough into it. And sometimes he focuses on the big stars that everybody will know, as he would, instead of some of the kind of unsung guys that hold some interest for me.
The one thing that I recall years ago, back when I was doing my old TV show, I had a chance to interview Johnny Paycheck.
Oh yeah, wow.
And
how was he?
Well, he came in and we did the whole talk, and oh
was
my goodness,
he lucid and sane? And
he was pretty. You know,
yeah.
he was in a position where he spoke quite freely. And one of the things that he did say was that, you know, he felt that Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash, they were just like phonies, and he was the real outlaw, you know?
In some ways, I think he's right.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Paycheck, his early stuff to me is kind of the missing link from that early honky-tonk stuff to the 60s stuff, but he was like wild. He was a wild man. And, you know, a lot of his stuff...
He spent time in jail.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really like his hits, but I liked some of his other stuff. You know, interesting guy.
Is it difficult to make a good living? Like,
yeah, I think it's difficult for any musician to make a good living. As they say, success in music is survival. I feel totally lucky because I can, you know, make enough money to survive, and I've had jobs like for a long time in my life. When my children were young and stuff, I managed bookstores, so I was a bookseller for many years, as well as playing the whole time too. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's tough. I don't really expect anything from it, but I've been lucky enough to be able to survive playing music. See, I think Calgary's like in some ways, is one of the few places left in Canada where you could make your living playing music, because a lot of cities now, like Toronto, for example, a lot of people play for tips exclusively. You know, like there's so many bands wanting to play in a place that, you know, you got to play for free, whereas Calgary still pays. And I've been lucky, you know, for a lot of my life to have bars that I play in on a regular basis, right? So I've had steady weekly gigs, so that helps me out in many ways. And for a long time, you know, it was even way easier because it was 6 nights a week, as long as you were willing to travel and, you know, and work every night and a matinee on Saturday. It was like, I come up through the bars. It's like, that's how I've always done it. Well, once again, I was a bookseller, right? So I knew a lot. I've known a lot of authors in my life. I did a lot of, like, I ran several independent bookstores in town, big ones, and then I ended up in a Chapters managing that. But I put on a lot of author readings and stuff like that. And Will Ferguson is a Calgary boy.
Yes, he sure
is. And so we
is.
got to know each other, and he would come out and see my band, like even back when I was a bookseller. And when he was writing this book called Spanish Fly, he and the Penguin sales rep were sitting out in one of my shows, and Will said, you know, it'd be a great idea. That's like the soundtrack I think of when I wrote that book, you know. So they asked me to do it. Will and Penguin asked me to do it. I mean, what is that? How do you write a soundtrack to a book, really? And who's going to play it? But it was a cool idea, so I did. Like, so I just wrote songs based on kind of the characters and what happened. Like that book, Spanish Fly, is about a con man and his girlfriend in the 30s trying to make a living across, you know, the U.S. and Canada. Yeah, grifters. So it was kind of a fun project to write it for. And I think it's the first one that was ever done. I know that Ry Cooder, after that, wrote a soundtrack to somebody else's book. I was interested in that. I'm a big Ry Cooder fan.
Oh, me too.
But, you know, so... But yeah, that was an interesting project to do. So that's just how it came about. He was just out at one of my shows.
Men of Constant Sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like obviously a takeoff of Man of Constant Sorrow.
Like the famous song.
By the Soggy Bottom Boys.
Yeah,
right?
sure. That band, I think we came together in about we probably named that band in about 1997, I would say. And that was before that movie.
That was a huge...
Yeah, it was a huge movie. It was really funny because we had that name, and we were playing at King Henry VIII's every Saturday night or something. That band was just coming together. And there's a song called Man of Constant Sorrow, which, you know, is like an old traditional, might be Stanley Brothers, but it might just be an old traditional tune. Yeah. And then that movie hit, and like people were booking us, but they didn't really know what we were, right? We didn't even know what was going on. Like, I don't think we'd seen the movie yet or anything like that. My motivation really is to try and write the best songs I can. Mm-hmm. And so, to be able to have the time to do that, I got to play all the time. You know what I mean? Like, because if I write songs, what would I write them for if I didn't play them? So that's kind of always what it's been for me. My motivation has been to, I'm just a huge song fan, and I've always wanted to write. And that's kind of the genre that I went into for writing. And that's what I love to do. I love to write songs. And I'm lucky enough to be able to play my own songs in bars and things, and that's what's kept me alive. And I really feel lucky to have done that. Because I think in general, you know, or a lot of the time, in a bar situation, people are playing covers.
Right.
And
that's what people want to hear.
Yeah, but I've been lucky enough to be able to get away with playing my own songs doing that. So that's my motivation, you know, and to play with other people, and that's really what I love to do.
Let's talk about Ribbons and Bows. You had somebody cover one of your songs.
Right.
Eric Bibb.
Eric Bibb, yeah.
Covered your song.
I was at I was playing at the Canmore Folk Festival a long time ago now. I can't even remember what year, but he was playing there. And, you know, as folk festivals in Canada often have, we were in a workshop together. So we were just kind of trading songs, and my accordion player was there, and we played that song, and he said, "Where's that song from?" And I told him that I'd written it. He goes, I want to record that. But, you know, people say that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say they say that all the time, but sometimes people will say that to you, and then, you know, nothing ever happens. But like a week later, we got a phone call from his people, and he said now he's going to put it on his next record, and what do we have to do? And it's kind of a cool record because the record that it's on is called Eric Bibb and Friends, and so Taj Mahal's playing on it. Like there's all these like amazing people.
All-star band.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Let's talk about alcohol. You give up alcohol?
Yeah,
How long ago did that happen?
about 5.5 years ago now.
Did you just decide that it was a negative thing, or you just had enough of it? What was the motivation to give up alcohol?
I was drinking more than anyone on earth.
Oh, okay.
I had a serious, like, I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, I started drinking young, you know, and from what I do, playing in bars, stuff like that, like, everything was always free, you're supposed to drink, and I took to it. I liked it, and so probably from the time I was 16 to when I quit, there's no way I played a gig without having a few drinks first.
Right.
And then, you know, it just, you know, continued, and then I was in the book business, and publishing at that time was a big drinking kind of fraternity as well. And I was just around it all the time, and you know, I quit 5.5 years ago. I probably should have quit 10, 15 years ago, because it just escalated. I was drinking a lot. Like
Was it difficult to quit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Like I was, you know, I was probably on like a couple of 26s of vodka a day.
Oh my goodness, that would have been brutal.
Just to maintain, and then I would drink at gigs, and so yeah, I mean, but you know, it's funny. I had to quit. I was sick, and you know, I'd been told I should quit many years before that, and then I didn't. But then I just quit, and it was difficult, like just, you know, physically difficult. But best thing I ever did.
Good for you.
For sure. The thing is, it's interesting though, from a playing perspective. I knew that you know, I think the thing I was most scared of was that if I quit, how was I going to play in bars? Because I couldn't even imagine that, right?
Yeah, because it's right there.
But it was, everybody was really kind to me in everywhere I worked, and after the first little, you know, having a hard time knowing how to plug my guitar in for a while, it's been easy because I still get to play, and I don't miss it, and I don't want it, but you know, I'm not against it. For me, I just took to it a bit too much.
You know,
it was a physical, it was a disease. You know?
I can see when you're talking
Yeah.
about it that you're.
Yeah, no, it was like it was,
You know, you're
it was the
looking
hardest
back at
thing-
it. You know?
Probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
But
One of
yeah,
the hardest things I've ever done.
Thank God you're looking
Yeah.
at it through the rearview mirror.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I can't believe it. I just, you know, and it's kind of a neat thing to do at kind of the age I'm at, because you suddenly feel like it's a whole new life again. You know, like I don't know. I felt like I was really stoned for the first 2.5 years. You know, it's like, wow, all this has been going on. I missed
Yeah.
it. You know, so
Yeah,
it's pretty neat. Yeah.
Different. Let's talk about drugs. I mean, there's
Sure.
so much going on. I mean, even Robbie Robertson in his last book
Yeah. Said
essentially
everybody he knew.
came right out and
Yeah.
said the band broke up because of drugs.
Right. It's a sad thing, because like music is such a beautiful thing, but there's so much darkness around it.
Right.
You know, that I think, you know, I mean, I think the concept of people bearing their souls in many ways through their art, if you want to talk about it like that, it can be a very difficult thing to do. I don't even know why you'd want to do it, but you know, people who are motivated to do it, I think it's difficult for them.
And a lot of, it's like you just having said about not, you know, how am I going to be without the alcohol?
Right.
How musicians saying the same thing about drugs.
Yeah, I was, you know,
can I be creative?
yeah. Well, there's all that. Like that's a very frightening thing, you know. But I mean, I think you can. I think it's just like I wondered after I quit, why was I doing that? You know, because I still can write, but I think you got to like really try hard at it. The thing is, I wasn't even writing probably by the end. You know, I had all these great ideas for songs, but then I just drank, and then I wouldn't get it down, right? So I really am enjoying writing now, but it is interesting when you do stop, because there's a certain part of your audience who probably came to see you just to see what weird thing you'd do next on stage, right? You know, would you fall down? What would happen? You know, and then that thing goes away. But like when it comes to drugs, I was never like I was a marijuana guy. That you know, that's you know.
A bit of pot, not the heroin.
Yeah, I did pot. I did
anything
do,
like that.
hey, you know, probably some mushrooms, things like that. But I could always take it or leave it. It wasn't. I mean, I absolutely did my fair share of it, but I didn't have the same kind of need for it that I had for alcohol. Tell each other lies, we fight and forget why we fell in love one time so long ago. You see my heart's grown cold, it's just getting old. It's been dropped and soiled so many times. If it has to change, then that's the way it goes. Ribbons and bows can turn into chains. There's lovers on the street, others we could meet, others couldn't keep from falling aside. I wonder what we'll do when we both get too blue. I wouldn't want to lose anything more. If it has to change, then that's the way it goes. Ribbons and bows can turn into chains. Winter winds will blow, turn our lives to snow. I'd be glad to know you anyway. You see my heart's grown cold, it's just getting old. It's been dropped and soiled so many times. If it has to change, then that's the way it goes. Ribbons and bows turn into chains. I haven't sung yet today. It was like, wow, there's some high notes in there. Top 5 albums, in no particular order. Hank Williams' 14 Greatest Hits. Glenn Gould, The Goldberg Variations. Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, or Blonde on Blonde, let's call that one. Merle Haggard, a collection that I don't even think you can get anymore. You might be able to find it on the net, that is a chronological 4-disc set of everything he wrote from about 1962. Out of the 70 songs on that, there's only 2 I don't like. Anything by Jackson Browne, Leonard Cohen's songs from A Room. Most recently, one of my all-time favorite records, Dawes. The band is called Dawes, and the album is called All Your Favorite Bands.